Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this delicious avocado pasta dough. Okay, so this is all we need. We need 1 avocado, 3 eggs, a little salt, and about 2 cups of 00 flour. So 00 flour is my preferred flour to use to make pasta, but if you don't have it, use all-purpose. So in a Vitamix or in a blender that you have, put your eggs and the avocado. A ripe avocado would be great. Put all of that in the blender and blend it to a very smooth paste. I don't want any chunky pieces in it. I want it to be super smooth, so a high-speed blender would be preferable. So here I'm adding just a pinch of salt for flavor, and I blend it on a very high speed, and this is the consistency I'm looking for. Okay, now I'm going to pour my flour. I'm starting with 2 cups here. Of course, that all depends on the size of your avocado, the size of the eggs. So start with 2 cups and then bring in more flour as you're kneading your dough. So I usually like to put aside about half a cup of my flour and then gradually bring in the flour as I'm kneading my dough. Okay, let's make the dough. So I'm bringing the flour slowly into the puree and whisk it in by bringing in a little bit flour at a time. You do this until your mixture is really hard to whisk with a fork. Then the fun starts. You go in with your hand. Make sure you flour the top of the dough because it's still really wet with the flour that you put aside. And keep folding it like that until the dough comes into shape. You see how it's holding its shape better, but it's still really wet. Try to use a bench scraper as often as you can to kind of clean up your surface as you're working your dough. Do you see how it's sticking to my counter? That's telling me that my dough is still a bit wet. So another way to see if your dough is ready or not is to open it up. And you see how sticky it is in the middle? Well, I'm just bringing a little bit more flour and I put it and I work the flour inside my dough by kneading it more. So making pasta dough requires patience, and this is where patience comes in. So knead your dough for about 8 to 10 minutes until you have a nice supple dough. It's not sticking to your hand, it's not sticking to the counter. I'm really happy with this dough, so I'm going to store it away. I sprinkle a little flour on top so it doesn't stick to my plastic wrapper. Make sure you wrap it up really nicely because pasta dough does dry out. Okay, so I rested my dough in the fridge overnight. You could also rest it on the counter for about an hour before rolling it out. So I cut a piece out and I put the rest back into the plastic wrapper. I don't want the rest to dry out. Here I'm rolling it out a little bit just to help it go through the pasta machine. So here I'm going to be laminating my dough. You just have to do this one time. Fold it like a book and then roll it out again. I'm trying to get a perfect, not a perfect, but a semi-rectangular shape. My dough feels a little wet here. It's a wetter dough, so I'm using a little bit more flour than needed. I run it through the pasta machine about 8 to 10 times, starting at the thickest setting and then work myself down to the second thinnest. So just be mindful you don't overflour your dough, just flour very lightly. So I like this consistency. Do you see the thickness of my pasta? I'm going to cut it into 2 sheets to run it through the pasta cutter here. cut out the extra pieces. Now a lot of people say, Fiona, what do you do with the extra pieces? I put them all in a plastic bag and then run it through the pasta machine and reuse it. If you notice, I'm flouring my dough really generously with flour. It's because it's going through the cutter, and it would just give me a much cleaner cut when it's really floured on the surface. So here is my angel hair pasta. Run through the cutter. You can either dry it for about half an hour before putting it in the boiling water, or I'll put it on a drying rack until all the moisture is gone and is dried. It usually takes about 3 to 4 hours, and store it in the fridge. Keeps really well in the fridge for about a week, in the freezer for up to 3 months. And that's how you make avocado pasta. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.